This time on Your Book Show, we're at Shrewsbury Library, focusing on teen fiction.
And I get to interview the legendary car salesman and utter snob, Boycie from Only Fools and Horses, otherwise known as actor John Challis, who's had such a colourful life that he's had to write 2 autobiographies to cover it all.
But first, one of your reviews. Isabel has read John Boyne's new book, The Terrible Thing That Happened to Barnaby Brockett. John's best known for his work, The Boy with the Striped Pyjamas, which was made into a film. His new book is much more whimsical, but no less truthful in meaning. It's been compared favourably with the work of Roald Dahl, which is a feat in itself. But what did Isabel make of it?
My name is Isabel, and I've read The Terrible Thing That Happened to Barnaby Brockett by John Boyne. The book is about a boy who floats, and his family are normal and they don't want a boy who floats. So one day he goes and floats off into the sky and experiences new things. My favourite part is when there's a fire in the school and Barnaby floats to the top of the ceiling and his friend comes into the fire and risks his life to come and save the boy, because I like that bit, because I think it's like showing that friends can help you. This book has a serious message in it as well. It's like about looking at who you are and embracing diversity and being different. I think in some ways John Boyne is like Roald Dahl because it's kind of the same type of writing, but it's about different things, obviously. I really enjoyed the book and found it really interesting.
Isabel wins herself a £10 Waterstones gift card for that lovely review. Well, now it's our turn, and we're looking at a couple of teen fiction books. Now, Vicky has read Why We Broke Up by Daniel Handler, with illustrations by Myra Kalman, and I read Berserk by Michael Grant. Vicky, what's at the heart of your book?
It's a doomed love affair, and that's not a spoiler. You know that from the beginning. There is a box, and it's full of memories, and it's Min's box, and she's returning it to Ed, and yeah, it's a little sad.
It's a little sad, but the device of the book, is that, how does that work out? Is it good?
With everything that comes out the box, it's a memory attached to it. And with each thing, there's a story, and that's how you kind of trespass into their world and find out why this box is being returned, why it all went wrong.
So who's Daniel Handler?
He's an American author that you actually know really well under the name of Lemony Snicket. Series of unfortunate events. So we know his work well, slightly different style, and this is his real name.
Now this book has got illustrations, but it's not for young children, is it?
No, it's more art than illustrations, I would say. It is dealing with some really bigger issues than for children. We're talking teenager stuff like losing your virginity, you know, bigger issues, but very real in the telling of it, very, very current.
So if you're a teenager going through these things right now, you're going to feel like this book's about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, there's a website that runs alongside of it where people can actually talk about their own heartbreak and their own stories. And Daniel Handler's been known to respond to some of those posts, and maybe he's picking up tips for his next book, I don't know.
Maybe
but
he is.
Exciting. Your book that you've been reading though, Rob, Michael Grant, Berserk.
Yes, Michael Grant. He's a Californian author. He grew up in a family in the military, so he's travelled around a lot, and you can really feel like that is in this book. It's full of espionage. It's sort of almost got this spy element to it.
What's it about?
It's about good and evil. It's about espionage. It's about politics in some regard, and it has these characters that are trying to control people with this sort of science fiction technology with nanobots, so they can get in your brain and they can take over your thoughts.
It sounds fast and furious.
It is fast, it is furious. There's not much time for reflection. There are some lovely moments in it. The characters are trying to figure out themselves, and it's sort of, you know, despair or love or what about it, but it doesn't focus on that. It focuses on this spy element.
Typical sci-fi?
No, it's not typical. It's not got that sort of element of trying to be in the future. You feel like you're now. You just have these people that have created this technology where they take control of you by controlling these tiny little nanobots and these like little armies that are down what they call down in the meat. inside you.
Is this a boys' book?
That's been criticised of this title, that it's a boys' book, and I don't see why it's a criticism. I think, yes, it is a boys' book. There's nothing wrong in that. I'm a big boy myself. I enjoyed it. I think there'll be lots of other people, lots of girls will enjoy it as well. But yeah, it's essentially that genre.
John Challis is most famous for playing Boycie in Only Fools and Horses. He's also written his autobiography.
I met up with John at the Castle Bookshop in Ludlow, and after he'd finished signing his books for his many fans, I asked him how he ended up writing 2 books about his life, being Boycie and Boycie and Beyond.
I originally intended it to be to one book, and so I was writing away sort of furiously, and all this stuff was coming out. But I found the more I wrote, if I eventually got some discipline in my life and sat down and wrote, instead of looking out of the window, and as I always did at school, more and more stuff was coming out. And I thought, God, all this stuff's coming out that I want to write about, and this reminded me of something else, or some person, a story, and so on. And eventually I got to coming up to the deadline, and I thought, I'm never going to finish this. So, and it was beginning to look a bit like War and Peace, you know, I mean, it was massive. And so I talked to my editor, who said, we should make it 2 books, you know. So we got all this stuff. But I found I sort of needed to explore. I'd never really confronted the sort of dark period in my life, you know. I mean, an awful lot of bad things happened in about 2.5 years of my life, and I got to a pretty low pitch. But strangely, the character, Boycie, was doing terribly well, and the show was flying, and everyone was sort of clapping me on the back and saying, I want to come and do this, come and appear here and there. But underneath, John Challis was not doing very well at all. And of course, as a lot of people do, you know, I sort of began to suspect that it was all my fault, and the best place to be was the pub, really. Right. Where there were a lot of jolly people, and we played lots of tennis together and mucked around, and I could see that it was a problem. You know, luckily I always had that awareness, but I found myself writing about it, and I didn't really want to, you know, but I found it really therapeutic.
How have you found it here, living on the marches?
Well, this was another unknown, of course. Would we be accepted? I mean, no idea. I mean, it helped me being off the telly, of course, because there was quite a bit of publicity about it, that I was arriving. And one of the local landowners, I met him at some charity do. We were asked to make up a table, and he and he came bounding over and said, "Boycie, I heard you were coming. It's wonderful that you're here. Why don't you come to lunch?" See, so I found myself at this great house with all these people all going, "Hello," you know, it was a fantastic introduction to the place.
And of course you were asked to be in Shakespeare here at the castle.
Yes, I had a bit of a rehearsal actually, because I was asked by Stafford Castle to do Malvolio.
Okay.
So obviously I only do Shakespeare in the open air.
Yes.
Because at Regent's Park I did Richard III in the Regent's Park. So here we are, Ludlow Castle. Would I come and do Malvolio in Twelfth Night? Of course I will, because I only work in the open air. But what a wonderful setting, you know. It's one of the great sort of settings in the world.
So what's next? Is there another book after being Boycie and Boycie and Beyond? Is there more books to come?
Well, I can think of one, but I'm not sure I should say Boycie bugger off would be quite a good one. No, I'm doing a one-man show, and I go around with a few clips from stuff I've done, talk about my life, and hopefully people will want to know more and buy a book or two.
Well, thank you very much, John. Thanks very much for having John Challis here on the show talking about Boycie and Beyond. And we're still working our way through our book list, so if you've read one of these titles or have something to say about any book, do get in touch.
And you could be on the next edition of Your Book Show,
with a £10 Waterstones gift card for you if you do.
So, get reading.
reading.